The sun out here doesn't just warm the skin, it bakes the soul. It leaches the color from the sky and the moisture from the earth, leaving everything the shade of faded cardboard. They called it Dusty Acre Farm, and for good reason. For the past 20 years, it had been exactly that, an acre of dry, useless nostalgia. When Grandpa passed and left it to us, Marcus and me, my brother saw liability. I saw a memory and a final chance. You're pathetic, Alex. Absolutely pathetic, Marcus had sneered, standing on the warped wooden porch, swatting imaginary dust from his Italian suit. He looked wholly out of place, a sleek shark in a desert pool. It's been 6 months. A developer offered 50 grand for the plot just to level it and pave it over for a strip mall entrance. 50 grand. Take the money, split it, and let's wash our hands of this dried-up hole. I leaned against the railing, the wood rough against my elbow. It's 100 acres, Marcus. Grandpa built his life here. It's not a strip mall entrance. It's a tax sink, a termite buffet, and a monument to pointless obstinance. He shot back, his voice rising with that familiar, impatient edge. Marcus had always measured value in immediate, liquid terms. He worked on Wall Street. He understood derivatives, not dirt. 50 grand for useless and dry. That's a gift. What are you holding out for? A miracle? You honestly think there's some kind of treasure buried under 10 feet of compacted clay? Grow up, Alex. We're selling. I didn't argue further. There was no winning with Marcus when the subject was money or sentiment. He was right about one thing. The farm was dry. The well had sputtered out years ago, relying purely on rain that rarely came. Every attempt I'd made to plant anything beyond hardy weeds had been a humiliating failure. I'd spent my inheritance trying to keep the pipes from rusting through and the barn from collapsing, pouring good money after bad, just to cling to a ghost. My savings were almost gone, and Marcus's constant calls were wearing me down. He'd given me 1 more month, threatening legal action to force a sale. That evening, I was out near the northwest corner, a section Grandpa always kept fenced off and which Marcus always ignored. It was the least promising patch, all cracked earth and sun-bleached stones. I was supposed to be preparing the ground, maybe trying to prove Marcus wrong by planting some specialized, drought-resistant alfalfa, though I knew it was a fool's errand. Instead, I found myself drawn to a spot where the dirt looked almost darker. It wasn't moisture, it was something else. A subtle inconsistency in the relentless tan landscape. Grandpa had always been a man of secrets, quiet and observational. He never talked about money, but he always had enough. He never talked about the land, yet he kept this one corner isolated. It was a faint whisper of a memory. Grandpa once mumbling about an old bore test the county did decades ago, way before his time, and how they missed something good by not going deeper. I dismissed it instantly. Those were the fantasies of a desperate man. Yet, the memory was enough to change the direction of my shovel. I brought the old gas-powered auger out of the barn. It was a beast, heavy and unreliable, smelling faintly of old gasoline and ambition. I positioned it over the slightly darker patch, pulled the cord until my arm ached, and finally, with a roar of mechanical defiance, the heavy spiral bit into the earth. The first 5 feet were agonizing. Clay, rock, more compacted clay. It was exactly the useless and dry earth Marcus had described. I was ready to give up, to let the machine run out of fuel, admit defeat, and call Marcus to finalize the sale. Then, at about 7 or 8 feet, the resistance changed. It wasn't softer, but different. A fine-grained grit mixed with something almost slick. The auger head started pulling up a sludge that wasn't gray-brown clay anymore. It was dark, almost black, and when it hit the ground, it gave off a distinct, slightly acrid, yet strangely familiar odor. My heart started that dangerous, frantic thump against my ribs, the kind of rhythm that signals either panic or immense, life-changing opportunity. I shut off the auger, the sudden silence of the farm ringing in my ears. The smell intensified in the stillness. I grabbed the hand shovel and started clearing the sludge away from the hole, digging manually now, feeling the cold metal bite into the ground. It was slow, back-breaking work, but I was suddenly operating on adrenaline. The dirt below was saturated, not with water, but with that dense, oily substance. At 10 feet, I could see it. just 10 feet down. It wasn't the sludge from the upper layer. It was a pure, unadulterated seep. A slow, viscous bubble of black gold rising in the bottom of the narrow bore hole. My hands were shaking so violently I had to drop the shovel. I crouched down, ignoring the dust and the smell, and peered into the dark, narrow cylinder I had just drilled into the planet. It was oil, crude oil. A pool of undeniable concentrated wealth sitting barely beneath the surface of the land my brother had just declared worthless. The shock wasn't the kind that freezes you, it was the kind that electrifies you. In less than a second, the entire narrative of my life, my debt, Marcus's smug dismissiveness, the developer's lowball offers, the crushing failure of Dusty Acre, flipped upside down violently. The farm wasn't useless, it wasn't dry, it was sitting on a reservoir, it was sitting on a fortune. I stood up slowly, wiping the black smear from my cheek. The setting sun cast long, deceptive shadows across the dry acres. I looked toward the distant lights of the main road, thinking of Marcus, of his contempt, and of his pending deadline. He wanted $50,000 for this land. What I was looking at was worth $50 million, maybe more, and I had found it 10 feet under the spot he had literally driven past without a second thought. The first, coldest thought that ran through my mind was not how to drill it, but how to hide it. Marcus couldn't know. Not yet. If he knew, he would descend like a vulture, demanding his half, probably trying to hire his own team and undercut me before the sun rose. This was my secret. This was Grandpa's final, silent gift, and I wasn't about to let Marcus ruin it. The farm was still dry and useless as far as the rest of the world was concerned, and it needed to stay that way until I had a plan. I needed to cover the hole, now, before anyone, especially Marcus, came looking. The game had changed entirely. Hiding an oil discovery is considerably harder than simply finding it. The immediate, dizzying euphoria of knowing I was sitting on a massive fortune quickly evaporated, replaced by a cold wave of paranoia. The problem wasn't the oil itself. The problem was the hole. It was a gaping circular witness, perpetually oozing the thick black evidence of my reversal of fortune. I spent the rest of the twilight working like a madman. I had to make the site look untouched, boring, and, above all, dry. I shoveled the oily sludge I had extracted earlier and dumped it into a deep, forgotten drainage ditch a quarter-mile away, covering it with dead leaves and broken branches. The auger, still coated in the sticky residue, had to be meticulously cleaned with kerosene and hidden under a tarp in the farthest corner of the dilapidated barn. It took 2 hours just to scrape the last remnants of crude from the cutting head. Every stroke of the rag felt like I was erasing a winning lottery ticket. Then came the hole. I couldn't just fill it with the excavated clay. The black residue clung to the sides, and the smell was already beginning to permeate the air. I had to use fresh, dry dirt from a different part of the property, a patch near the old chicken coop that was truly barren. I hauled load after load in the rusty wheelbarrow, tamping it down, layer by layer, until the surface was level. I scattered dry grass and fine dust over the fresh patch, trying to make it blend into the surrounding desolation. By the time I finished, under the stark light of a nearly full moon, the northwest corner looked exactly as it had the day before, neglected, forgotten, and thoroughly useless. But the smell, that persistent, faint aroma of hydrocarbons, was my undoing. I couldn't smell it anymore after 2 hours of working with it, but I knew anyone fresh to the scene would detect it, especially Marcus. He had a nose for money, and that nose was connected to a greedy, suspicious brain. I needed a cover story, and I needed it fast. I decided to lean into the useless narrative. I called Marcus the next morning, my voice tired and resigned. "I'm done, Mark. You win." He paused, clearly surprised by my sudden capitulation. Done with what exactly? Trying to grow corn in a desert? Done trying to save the place. The pipes burst when I tried to reprime the old well yesterday. Huge mess. I ruined the auger trying to clear the blockages. I'm out of money. Sell the farm. I don't care anymore. I tried to sound genuinely defeated. It wasn't hard. The exhaustion was real. "Well, took you long enough to see reason, Alex," he replied, the smugness practically dripping through the phone. "I'll call the developer. 50 grand. We split it, $25K each. You'll have to clean up the mess first, though. Don't want them backing out over burst pipes. I'll clean it. Just get the papers ready. I hung up quickly before he could interrogate me about the location of the burst pipes or the auger damage. The burst pipe was my new alibi. If anyone came poking, Marcus, a land surveyor, the developer, I could show them the old pump house, point out the cracked, brittle PVC I had intentionally snapped in two, and explain that the smell was just old, stagnant well water and rusted metal. It was flimsy, but it was plausible enough for people who didn't want to dig. And that was the key. No one wanted to dig on Dusty Acre. But the problem was bigger than Marcus. The state of Texas owns the minerals beneath the surface, unless the mineral rights were separated and retained by a previous owner. I spent the next week holed up in the farm office, which was hot, dusty, and thankfully, had a decent satellite internet connection. I dove into obscure county records, digital archives, and legal precedents. My eyes blurred reading deeds from the 1920s and probate files from the 1950s. I lived on cold coffee and the sickening fear that my multi-million-dollar find would turn out to belong entirely to the government. The farm had been in the family since 1957, bought by my great-grandfather, Arthur Vance. Marcus and I had always assumed the mineral rights were included, but no one had ever checked. The original 1957 deed contained an infuriatingly vague clause. It stated that all subsurface mineral rights are retained by the seller unless the seller fails to claim use within a period of 25 years from the date of sale. That was the twist. The seller, an old cattleman named Jedediah Price, had died 5 years after the sale, and his family had moved to Colorado, never attempting to drill or claim anything. The 25-year deadline had passed in 1982. By the letter of that deed, the mineral rights had reverted to the surface owner, my grandfather. It was a massive, obscure loophole, a forgotten legal time bomb that had just exploded in my favor. I printed the deed, the legal analysis I found, and tucked the papers into a heavy, fireproof safe. The oil was legally mine. The next step was production, and that required secrecy, capital, and professional discretion. I couldn't risk bringing a full-scale drilling rig onto the farm. It would be visible for 5 miles, and Marcus would hear about it before the drill bit touched the ground. I needed to move slowly and professionally, securing the necessary leases and permits under the guise of starting a small-scale water testing operation, or maybe a geological research project. I started researching small independent oil speculators, those who operated on tight margins and valued discretion over big company branding. I found a name, Elias Vance, no relation thankfully, a retired petroleum engineer who now ran a small consultancy focusing on tight formation testing in remote areas. He was known for being expensive, meticulous, and crucially, silent. I sent him a carefully worded email explaining I was exploring a personal investment opportunity on my family's remote land and needed discrete, deep core samples taken from a specific coordinate. I avoided using the word oil entirely, speaking only of subsurface fluid samples. 2 days later, Elias replied. His price was astronomical. It would wipe out the last of my savings and require me to take out a substantial loan. But his response was short and professional. My team operates 100% discreetly. We arrive under cover of darkness, work silently, and leave no trace. If you're serious, we can be there in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That was the window. 3 weeks to secure the loan, 3 weeks to deal with Marcus, and 3 weeks to prepare the farm for the arrival of my secret salvation. I knew Marcus was already drafting the sale paperwork for the land. I had to let him proceed. I had to let him believe he was winning, right up until the last possible second. The satisfaction of proving him wrong wasn't enough. I wanted the satisfaction of watching him lose something huge that he never even knew he possessed. The stage was set for the deepest secret and the biggest lie of my life. The next 2 weeks were a blur of calculated risks and constant anxiety. I secured a predatory, high-interest loan using the farm itself as collateral, a move Marcus would have killed me for had he known. I needed to move fast, and bank loans move slow. This private loan gave me the capital needed to pay Elias Vance's deposit and, perhaps more importantly, buy time. The loan officer, A shady character named Sal only cared about the farm's value as land, blissfully unaware of the black gold beneath the dry surface. This entire operation hinged on layers of calculated deceit. Marcus, meanwhile, was ecstatic. He finalized the deal with the developer, a massive corporation called Omniterra, known for building soulless suburban sprawl. The closing date was set for precisely 4 weeks away. He called me daily, not to gloat, but to provide patronizing instructions on how to prepare the property. Make sure that barn is cleared out, Alex. And for God's sake, haul away all that junk metal near the fence line. Omniterra wants a clean slate. You don't want to mess this up and lose your 25 grand. Every call was a fresh reminder of the trivial amount of money he thought I was fighting for. I spent my days on the farm, cleaning up the visible surface mess, burning piles of brush, and generally making the property look primed for demolition. But my nights were dedicated to preparation of a different kind. Elias Vance's team required a clear access path to the northwest corner and a secure, discreet staging area. I cleared out the old machine shed, patching the roof and reinforcing the lock. This shed, conveniently shielded from the road by a large copse of sickly oaks, would serve as our clandestine base of operations. The real challenge was the cover. If a crew showed up with specialized equipment, even at night, questions would be asked. I bought 2 beat-up white pickup trucks and had temporary signage printed. Vance & Sons Geological Surveys, Water Table Assessment. I put up No Trespassing, Active Survey Site signs around the perimeter of the farm. The narrative was simple. After the burst pipe disaster and realizing the well was dry, I was paying a consultant to determine the viability of drilling a new, deeper water well before selling the land. It was a common, sensible, last-ditch effort that provided a solid explanation for the activity. 3 days before Elias was scheduled to arrive, Marcus showed up unannounced. He pulled his black sedan up to the porch, emerging with an air of proprietorial superiority. "What the hell is all this?" he demanded, gesturing toward the new signs and the freshly repaired shed. "Geological surveys? Are you wasting more money, Alex? The land is sold. Stop messing with it." I leaned against the porch post, trying to look defeated but busy. "It's called due diligence, Marcus. Omniterra's contract had a contingency clause about water access for their construction crew. I told them the well was shot. They said if I could provide proof the water table was non-existent, they'd expedite the closing by a week. If I fail, they could drag this out another 6 months. I hired a guy to write a report that says, dry, dry, dry. It's a formality." He narrowed his eyes. "A water survey costs money, Alex. You said you were broke. I put the deposit on my credit card. I need the money fast, Marcus. You know that. I'm just playing the game to get the 25 grand as fast as possible." Marcus seemed mollified. He understood the urgency of money. He walked around the property, inspecting my cleanup job, pausing suspiciously near the northwest corner. My heart hammered. "Why all the fresh dirt here?" he asked, pointing toward the spot where I had filled the borehole. I tried to keep my breathing even. That's where the old septic drain field was. It collapsed when I drove the tractor over it. Had to fill it in. Don't want Omniterra dealing with old waste, do we? You should thank me. He kicked the dirt skeptically. It held. The dry surface was convincing. Fine. Just wrap this survey up and don't spend another dime. I'll have the papers ready next week. Try not to screw up the final transaction, Alex. This is the last time I bail you out of this hole." He got back into his car, the engine idling impatiently, and sped away, completely satisfied by my pathetic, desperate explanation. That night, Elias Vance arrived. He wasn't the rugged outdoorsman I expected. He was lean, 50-ish, with steel-rimmed glasses and the calm, methodical demeanor of a chess master. He was accompanied by 2 silent men and a low-slung trailer carrying highly specialized, almost alien-looking equipment. Nothing like the huge, familiar drilling rigs of the big oil companies. "The location," Elias said simply, his voice low and precise, bypassing all pleasantries. I led him to the northwest corner. I pointed to the exact coordinates I had mapped using my phone's GPS, 10 feet from where I had found the initial seep. Elias didn't even glance at the repaired septic field. He set up a small, tripod-mounted device, a sensitive magnetometer, and ran a quick scan of the area. He paused, looking at the reading. The report said subsurface fluids. Your magnetic profile here suggests something highly dense, possibly ferrous, at about 300 feet. Or, he paused, looking directly at me with an unsettling calm, a substantial amount of non-ferrous hydrocarbon material, concentrated. I held his gaze. Let's just drill for the fluid, Elias. 10 feet. Let's start with a core sample at 10 feet. I pushed the lie to its breaking point. He just nodded, a flicker of understanding passing behind his eyes. He clearly knew what was going on, but his professionalism outweighed his curiosity. Very well. We'll sample to 50 feet for our initial core, as per our agreement. If we find what I suspect, the price triples immediately. We work until dawn. No lights. His team began setting up the equipment. It was a marvel of quiet, compact engineering. Within an hour, the drill was running, making only a low, rhythmic grinding sound. The fate of Dusty Acre and my entire future was now hanging on a thin, rotating shaft of steel, burying its way back into the secret I had so desperately tried to protect. The sound of the drill was the sound of money, and Marcus was sleeping just 30 miles away, completely oblivious to the wealth being unearthed in his share of Grandpa's useless and dry farm. The silence of the night was only broken by the low, insistent drone of Elias Vance's drill rig. It was an industrial lullaby that meant the difference between bankruptcy and unimaginable wealth. I sat in the machine shed, watching the monitor Elias had set up. It displayed depth readings and rock resistance in real time. Elias himself stood by the wellhead, adjusting valves and occasionally rubbing the grease from his specialized gloves. He was all business, treating my multi-million-dollar secret like a routine municipal water assessment. At 10 feet, the drill briefly snagged, and the sensor spiked with a low-viscosity fluid reading. Elias didn't react outwardly, but he shot me a quick, meaningful glance across the dark yard. He knew. We kept going. At 30 feet, the resistance dropped significantly. The monitor showed a saturated zone. This wasn't just a seep. It was a layer of highly porous, oil-bearing rock. This was confirmation, but Elias needed more. He needed to prove the size of the reservoir. The drill plunged past 50 feet, then 100. The core samples that came up were handled with the reverence of archaeological finds. They confirmed high-quality crude. Elias's initial speculation about the magnetic anomaly at 300 feet proved correct. We were hitting the cap of the main formation. "This is not a pocket, Alex," Elias whispered, kneeling by the latest core sample under the faint light of a headlamp. He pointed to the thick, uniform saturation of the rock. "This is a sea. It's a tight, shallow trap, protected by a dense shale cap. It's unconventional, but it's enormous. We are sitting on what appears to be a significant volume of recoverable light crude. Your $25,000 is now approximately $200 million, possibly more." My mind registered the number, but the gravity of it refused to sink in. I was too focused on the immediate operational threat: daylight. We managed to pull the drill pipe and secure the wellhead just as the first gray light began to appear on the eastern horizon. Elias capped the bore hole with a pressure-sealed steel plate, then carefully covered it with the dirt I had brought earlier, scattering dry leaves and brush until it was indistinguishable from the surrounding area. The equipment was disassembled and loaded back into the nondescript trailer with remarkable speed. By 6:30 a.m., when the first commuter cars started driving past on the main highway, the Vance and Sons vehicles were gone, vanished into the dawn. The only proof of the night's work was the faint smell of diesel and the astronomical figure now floating in my head. Elias, true to his word, met me at a neutral diner 60 miles away an hour later. He handed me a single USB stick. "The full geological report is on here, including seismic projections and preliminary recovery estimates. I've taken the liberty of drafting a proposal for Phase 2, a small modular pump jack operation that requires minimal footprint and can be operational within a month. It's expensive, but necessary if you want to monetize this before the land sale closes." I looked at the estimate. It was another 7-figure investment. "I don't have this kind of liquid capital, Elias. Not yet." Elias took a sip of his coffee. "You don't need liquid capital, Alex. You have the collateral of a confirmed $200 million asset. You approach a specialized resource lender, show them the data, and they will finance Phase 2 overnight. But you must do this before the Omniterra deal closes in 2 weeks. Once you sign that land over, you lose control of the surface access, and getting that well operational becomes a nightmare no matter what your mineral rights say. His words hit me like a physical blow. 2 weeks. That's all the time I had to transform myself from a desperate, broke farmer into a fully financed oil operator. The pressure was immense. I returned to the farm, my mind racing. I immediately started the process of securing the specialized resource loan, an aggressive, high-stakes negotiation process conducted entirely over secure channels. Every phone call, every email felt like a potential leak. I was negotiating multi-million-dollar deals while wearing dusty jeans and drinking instant coffee in a shed. The ultimate deadline, however, was Marcus. 2 days later, Marcus called. "Closing is set for Thursday, Alex. 2 days. The money is wired and ready to go into escrow. I'm having the documents couriered to you for your signature this afternoon. Sign them and FedEx them back to the title company tomorrow morning. Don't be late. This has to be seamless." I gripped the phone tightly. Seamless. Got it. The development was moving too fast. If I signed those papers, Omniterra would own the surface rights, and even though the oil was legally mine, accessing it would require months, possibly years, of legal battles over surface use agreements, time I didn't have before I defaulted on Sal's loan. I had to stop the sale without revealing the oil. The stakes were impossibly high. I had to pull a stunt. I had to create a crisis that would postpone the closing long enough for my financing to finalize, and for Elias's team to get the pump jack operational. But the crisis couldn't damage the land, or Marcus would never forgive me. I needed a distraction, something major, sudden, and completely external. That night, an idea, cold and ruthless, formed in my mind. It leveraged the one thing Marcus cared about more than anything: his reputation. I decided to use the pretense of the burst pipe, the one lie he had accepted, and magnify it into a catastrophe involving something Omniterra would genuinely fear: environmental contamination. It was a bluff of epic proportions, designed to stall the closing and send Marcus into a panicked tailspin. I spent the next morning constructing the perfect illusion of disaster. The first thing I did was visit a local automotive garage and buy 5 gallons of the cheapest, most acrid-smelling motor oil they had. The next crucial component was the phone call. I knew exactly who to call: a retired journalist named Roger Hayes, a crusty environmental activist known for publishing fiery editorials about Omniterra's destructive development practices in local papers. I called him anonymously from a burner phone. "I have information regarding the Omniterra purchase of the Dusty Acre Farm on County Road 42. It's an environmental hazard. Toxic substances from an old, improperly abandoned oil seep are leaching into the soil near the northwest corner. They covered it up." Hayes was instantly suspicious. "Who is this?" "Someone who just wants Omniterra stopped before they pave over the evidence. Look for the old septic field near the barn. Dig down a foot. You'll smell it." I hung up before he could respond. The next critical step was planting the evidence. That evening, just as the sun set, I went to the northwest corner. I used a post hole digger to create several small, shallow holes exactly 1 foot deep, scattering them across the area I had filled weeks before. I poured the 5 gallons of dark, smelly motor oil into these shallow holes. It soaked into the dry, porous dirt immediately, creating dark, unmistakable, toxic-looking stains on the surface. Crucially, this was all above the real steel-capped wellhead. The goal was panic, not accurate exposure. The next day, Hayes' story broke. It wasn't in a major newspaper, but in a widely shared, aggressive online blog and local environmental newsletters. The headline screamed, "Omniterra concealing decades-old toxic leak at new development site. Local activists demand answers." The article was vague but sensational, pointing specifically to hydrocarbon contamination and questioning the integrity of the land survey. Marcus called me 3 hours later. He wasn't smug anymore. He was apoplectic. "Alex, what the hell is this garbage? My client is calling me. The developers. Hayes is a lunatic, but Omniterra's stock dipped 0.5 point. They're demanding to know what environmental catastrophe you've buried on the property." I adopted a tone of weary innocence. I told you, Marcus, the pipes burst. I told you I had to fill in the old septic field where the drainage failed. It was probably just old sludge, or maybe some ancient kerosene Grandpa used for the tractor. I cleaned it up, I swear. I filled the hole with dry dirt. It looked fine when I left. It doesn't look fine now, you idiot. The article has pictures of black stains. The title company is freezing the closing. They need an emergency environmental assessment before they'll proceed. This deal is going to fall apart, and it's because of your negligence. He was screaming now, his voice raw with fury over his jeopardized commission. I don't know what to tell you, Marcus. It was an old farm, stuff breaks. The ground is dry, but if some journalist dug down where the old system was, maybe he found something messy. It's just an old farm, Marcus. Useless and dry, right? That's what you said. I let the words hang there, twisting the knife. The irony was palpable. The fake contamination had stalled the sale, giving me the crucial extra time I needed. The environmental crisis bought me exactly 8 days of chaos. Omniterra, terrified of liability, immediately hired a private firm to conduct an emergency site assessment. That firm would arrive on the farm in 4 days. That gave me 4 days to execute Phase 2. The pressure lender, satisfied with Elias's seismic data, finalized the high-risk, high-interest loan. The funds were wired that night. The next morning, Elias Vance and his team returned, this time under cover of a fabricated story about installing a temporary water remediation system to address the alleged septic leak. They brought with them a sophisticated, compact pump jack module, designed to be assembled and disguised rapidly. Working around the clock, they drilled a proper, narrow production well adjacent to the test bore hole. They cased it, cemented it, and installed the small, quiet pump jack. We used old corrugated metal and scrap wood from the barn to build a small shack around the entire apparatus, making it look like a primitive, poorly constructed irrigation pump house, the kind of ugly, ramshackle structure that would be instantly slated for demolition by Omniterra. By the end of the 4th day, the pump was installed. I watched with bated breath as Elias flipped the main switch. With a low, almost silent thump, 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 the pump began its slow work. Within minutes, the first crude oil, hot, black, and viscous, began flowing through the pipes and into the first of a series of large buried storage tanks we had discreetly installed near the machine shed. It was a minuscule operation compared to a major oil field, but it was functional, it was secret, and it was pumping. The farm was officially a producer. The day the environmental assessors showed up, they found the messy surface stains I had created, took samples, which would reveal trace amounts of engine oil, consistent with my old tractor leakage story, and looked suspiciously at the new, ugly pump shack. I played the nervous, defeated farmer perfectly. "It's just my emergency water pump," I told the assessors, shrugging. "Trying to prove the well is dry so my brother can finally sell the place." They nodded, disinterested, and left. They never suspected that beneath the ugly shack, running silently, was the pump drawing millions of dollars of light sweet crude. The closing was rescheduled for the following week. I had bought my time. Now came the final, most satisfying twist, the closing itself. The closing day arrived, a beautiful, crisp Thursday morning, a fitting backdrop for the worst day of Marcus's financial life. I showed up at the title company office in the city, wearing my best, though still slightly dusty suit, carrying the signed surface rights contract, ready to execute the final, devastating move. Marcus was there, flanked by Omniterra's lead attorney and the title agent. Marcus looked drawn and exhausted, still reeling from the environmental scare. He barely acknowledged me, shooting only sharp, resentful glances. "You really put us through the ringer, Alex," Marcus muttered as we took our seats at the large mahogany table. "That contamination stunt nearly killed the deal. Omniterra is taking a significant discount just to proceed, and they've levied a fine on us for the cleanup costs. This 25 grand split is going to be closer to 20. All because you couldn't keep your old farm clean." I remained silent, letting him stew in his perceived victory. The papers were presented. The Omniterra attorney confirmed that their revised agreement only covered the surface rights to the 100 acres, ensuring they wouldn't have to deal with any subsurface liabilities, a provision they had insisted upon after the contamination. They wanted a clean, flat slate for their strip mall. I nodded solemnly. We proceeded through the stack of documents, confirming boundaries and liabilities. Finally, we reached the key section, the mineral rights. The title agent, a young woman who looked bored, presented the final deed transfer document. "Mr. Vance," she said, indicating the signature line. "This confirms the transfer of the land and all attached assets, excluding the mineral rights which, according to the 1957 deed and subsequent county records, were legally separated and reverted to the current surface owner's name in 1982. This document simply confirms that Alex Vance retains all subsurface mineral rights." Marcus scoffed. "Mineral rights to what? Sand and clay? Just sign it, Alex. It doesn't matter. It's useless and dry." I picked up the pen and signed the surface transfer documents, officially selling the land for the pitiful sum of $20,000. The Omniterra attorney pushed a final document across the table. "One last formality. Since Mr. Alex Vance retains the mineral rights, we require a standard waiver confirming that any future extraction activity will utilize the existing established access points and adhere strictly to the minimal footprint agreement already established on the site, to prevent disruption to our future commercial property. Sign here, confirming the use of that pump jack you installed." Marcus looked confused. "What pump jack?" "The emergency water pump I told you about, Marcus," I replied, my voice steady. "The one you almost lost the sale over." I signed the waiver without hesitation. This locked me into using the tiny concealed pump jack system that was already operational, preventing Omniterra from blocking future access. Then, I pushed a thick, sealed envelope across the table toward Marcus. "Before you leave, Marcus, I need to show you something. It's a courtesy." Marcus looked at the envelope with suspicion, tearing it open. Inside were two documents, the detailed geological survey from Elias Vance and a certified statement of net worth from my new resource lender. The number on the latter was staggering. Marcus scanned the geological report, his face draining of color as his eyes registered the words, "Highly productive light, sweet crude formation. Estimated recoverable reserves, 215 million barrels." His breath hitched. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and panicked. "What is this, Alex? A joke? This is impossible. That land is dry." 10 feet underground, Marcus," I said softly, the satisfaction a deep, warm current in my chest. 10 feet, right where you were standing when you called it useless. Grandpa's final gift. You inherited the surface land. I inherited the mineral rights. And I found the oil before I signed over the surface rights to Omniterra. The Omniterra attorney, who had been listening intently, reached over and snatched the geological report. He read the summary, then slammed his hand on the table, instantly transforming from professional to predator. "Mr. Vance, we have just purchased the surface rights. We will file an immediate injunction against any—" "You purchased the surface rights for a strip mall entrance," I cut in, maintaining eye contact with the now fuming attorney. "And you signed a waiver confirming I can use my existing low-impact pump jack to access my subsurface assets. I have already secured all the necessary state permits for low-impact recovery. You don't get a surface use negotiation because you already accepted the terms. That ugly pump shack you will be tearing down is currently tapping into a resource worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Your client owns the top 6 inches of dirt. I own everything below it." Marcus was slumped in his chair, his face a mask of shock, disbelief, and sickening realization. He hadn't just lost his $20,000, he had lost half of a multi-million-dollar fortune that was legally and secretly flowing out of the farm he had called a tax sink. You used the environmental scare to buy time," he stammered, finally understanding the scope of my deception. "I used the lie you accepted, the burst pipe, to create a problem that stalled the sale long enough for me to prove the only thing that mattered," I confirmed. "You saw the liability. You measured the profit in pennies. I saw the legacy, and I saw the wealth. I stood up, the closing complete. I had the $20,000 from the sale, which immediately went to pay off Sal's loan, and I had a low-key oil operation discreetly pumping out my multi-million-dollar future back on Dusty Acre. The farm was now Omniterra's problem and my perpetual revenue stream. Don't worry, Marcus, I said, leaning over the table. I'll use some of the first royalties to make sure the developers don't pave over the old pump house too soon. After all, it's the only access point I'm legally allowed to use. I walked out of that title office, leaving the three of them, the enraged attorney, the stunned agent, and the broken, white-faced brother, to contemplate the true cost of dismissing a useless and dry farm. The hot desert sun outside suddenly felt less like a curse and more like the warmth of $100 million investment rising from 10 feet underground.